if you guys didn't know, The Sopranos is my favorite TV show of all time. I watched it every day for 3 years straight, rewatched the entire series over and over again, just studying different aspects of the character, studying different things they would do. And if you guys didn't know, The Sopranos is a show about a New Jersey mafia boss and basically his day-to-day struggles, dealing with his family, dealing with his the guys who work in the mob family with him, the guys who work under him, having problems with other mob families, the New York mafia, stuff like that. It basically goes over like his day-to-day struggles and everything you go through, being a mafia guy, all the hardships you go through, all the temptations you deal with, the money, the power, the drugs, the women, stuff like that. And the character of Tony Soprano, he's this like alpha male mob boss, you know, um, totally, he gets everything he wants. He gets away with murder. He has all the money. He has all the women. He's feared. Nobody can stop him. He's pretty powerful. He has connections with the law enforcement. He is like on top of the world, right? But his only weakness throughout the whole show that I noticed, the only thing that was like his kryptonite was his wife, right? And he's miserable because he always has to work and make tons of money to keep his wife happy. Like he has his wife and kids living in this giant mansion, you know? So even though he's rich and he makes a lot of money, he always has to work harder than he should and keep finding new ways to make crazy amounts of money because his family lives such a high consumption lifestyle that he always has to he's like a slave to his job. Even though he has so much power, he can never like take a day off. Like throughout the whole show, you very rarely see him like relaxing. He's always working. He always has to kill new people. He always has to do all this crazy stuff, to keep the lights on, I guess. And every time him and his wife get in a fight, and she's like about to leave him, he has to buy her like a new Porsche or a new diamond ring or another house. He always has to buy his wife things to keep her from leaving him. Every time, like if she catches him cheating or whatever, he has to buy her off essentially to keep her from leaving him. And he talks about how he has a therapist in the show, right? And he talks to his therapist about, he's like, I've got the entire world in the palm of my hands. Why am I still so miserable, right? And the way I always saw it was the reason he's so miserable is because he is a slave to his job and he's a slave to his wife. He has to keep working because even though he's a powerful mob boss, no one in the mob is really happy. You can't have peace of mind knowing you have to go out and kill people and risk going to jail every day. You can't, you have no peace living that lifestyle. It's incredibly stressful. And his wife had such a huge appetite for money and status that he'd always have to take bigger risks than he should, to keep her happy. He'd have to do crazy things to be able to afford to keep her living that lavish lifestyle. And he was like a slave to her in a sense. He was a slave to that high priced lifestyle. I always felt like he was a genius. He had the perfect, mentality to be successful. He knew how to have everything under control, but his one weakness was always his wife. And I felt like he would have been so much happier as a character if he just had if he, made all the money that he made, but lived more modestly, lived more minimalistically, lived more low key. He wouldn't have the pressure of everybody looking at him because they know he's rich, they know he lives in a mansion. He always has to live up to this standard. He wouldn't be such a slave. And he would start consuming more. Like as the show goes on, he gets fatter and fatter because he feels like such a prisoner, that he just he starts consuming more. He would start, because he's so miserable, he would start spending more money. He would buy boats and buy new cars and gamble all his money away. Like he started becoming reckless, and self-destructive really, because he feels like such a prisoner and such a slave to the lifestyle. And he always talks about how he's depressed and he's secretly suicidal, and it's just crazy how his weakness for his need to have this woman, this trophy wife, makes him do all these things that make him miserable, and he always has to just come up with new ways to put more and more money on the table out of fear that one day she's going to leave him, and he has to she makes him send his kids to like the most expensive colleges and buy all this crap he doesn't need. And you can tell he just wants to be free. Like he talks about throughout the show how he's like, he has this fascination with animals and ducks. He has ducks that live in his pool, and he's fascinated with them because they're free. They can just fly away. He always secretly wanted to be like a bird. He wanted to just fly away. He hated being like imprisoned to this, high money, high consumption lifestyle that his wife kind of forces him to be under. He never really wanted any of that. He does it all for her. He talks about how everything he does is for his wife and kids. And he's really just a slave. He has all the money. He has all the power. He's feared by everybody. But he's still a slave to his wife. And that always kind of stuck out with me. That was like the one thing I wish he never did in the show, was marry his wife. At least maybe find a more humble woman that doesn't want that, high consumption lifestyle. And that it like destroyed him. It was like the greed and the need to always buy things for his wife, forced him to take crazy risks and do things he shouldn't have to. And eventually, I'm not going to spoil the show for you guys, but all of it ends up just costing him his life, And I see so many men, go through this. They have this high consumption lifestyle, because their wives need that, because they're so empty. So these men have to go work 7 days a week, work jobs they hate to keep their wives, comfortable. And their wives don't even like them. It's just, I don't know, it's all just a sick joke. It's like I'd rather just be minimalistic and not have to worry about always finding new ways to make more and more money, killing myself to keep some old hag comfortable, and all she does, his wife, he like buys her these Porsches and these houses so that she can show off to her other like housewife friends that are like all old as hell and disgusting anyway. It's just like a joke. It's like, this is what he slaves away for, this is what he like works so hard for and kills himself for. And like he would eat more out of stress. He got fatter because he's eating out of stress. It's like, how do I keep the money coming in? So that was like the one flaw that I feel like, Tony Soprano had in the show, is that he always had to like keep his wife happy and keep her like financially satisfied, and always had to find new ways to like up the ante and show like give her new stuff that she's never had before. Like if he had to buy her a ring to keep her happy, a couple months later he has to buy her like a car, and then a couple months after that he has to buy her like a house. It's just like, I don't know, it just never ends. And it's just like, why work so hard just so you can give it all away to a woman like that? If he had just lived a more minimalistic lifestyle, had a more humble wife, I feel like he probably could have got out of the mob somehow, just lived a decent life. He talks about in the show how he sees a guy walking down the street just whistling, carefree, a guy that doesn't have anything. And he wants to punch that guy in the face because he hates that guy that has so much less than him is so much happier than him. And that's like the story of MGTOW versus the blue pill married men. We have a lot less than blue pill guys. They have the big houses, the nice cars, they're in debt. They have to do that to keep their wives happy. We don't have any of that, and we don't have a care in the world. I don't care about anything. I'd get up every morning, I'm like, whatever. I'm not worried about anything. I don't have to, pay the mortgage. I don't have to put my kids through private school and make the payment on the Mercedes. I could care less. And that was like the big flaw that I feel like he had in the show. So if you guys ever watch the show The Sopranos, keep an eye open for how he always has to like buy new stuff for his wife and keep, making more money and working 7 days a week just to keep her happy, and never really getting to like live a life of his own. That's just my take on it, guys. That's Tony Soprano.